All right, this is a new kind of thing. I'm here in the warehouse. This is the new expansion to my studio. It's right across the hall from the studio that I had. I still have it, keeping that, but I just have a lot more room for activities now. As you can see, I've relocated my collection, or I guess, I don't know if I'll put this video out on my side channel or Patreon or what I'm gonna do, so I don't know what you've seen and what you haven't, but yeah, I got all my stuff and moved it over here into this new space. Here, let's just take a quick spin and I'll show you what I mean. We got most of my computer collection. I do have a few others that aren't there. And then a bunch of my video gear, stuff like that, and a bunch of networking stuff, all my cameras, that sort of thing. Now you'll notice it is a little dim in here. I have not yet had an opportunity to get this room properly lit. So right now, all we have are a couple of studio LED fixtures, which aren't quite cutting it, but that's something I'll deal with eventually. And then of course, this is all the stuff that I haven't yet been able to categorize or sort or anything like that. So that's a whole project in itself. But for the moment, I just thought, well, let's see what I could do with this place. This space isn't really ready to be used for anything per se, but the trouble is I'm not exactly sure what to do with it yet. It's a great big room. There's a ton of space. I don't know if you noticed, but there's like 10 feet by about 30 of just open space here. So I actually have room to work on things here at the studio, which I didn't have before. I could come in and set something up on a table and show it to you, but that was it. I really didn't have any space to take it apart or to tinker with it or whatever. I really only had one flat surface and one chair and nowhere to set things up and connect them together and try stuff. And so I was doing all my sort of investigatory and research work at home, which has its benefits. But there's also benefits to, being here where everything is. So in time, I'm hoping to do more with this space. I'd like to get it properly lit, and I'd like to actually shoot videos in here. The stuff I've been doing on my bench at home, I'm kind of contemplating just moving here into the warehouse and setting up some sort of bench in the middle of the room so I have more filming angles and so it looks a bit less like a dingy basement at my house. But before I can even think about any of that, I just have to see how things work, like what this room sounds like and how it feels like to be in and that sort of thing. And so I decided I was just gonna do one quick little thing in here and share it with you. I was gonna do two quick little things. One of them turned out to be not so quick and not so little. This here is an HP LaserJet 2. And if you watched my video on the history of scanners, I had a card in there, I think that was an Intel Visual Edge, something like that, which was actually a raster image processor. It was meant to accelerate this particular printer. So you put this card in your PC and you'd plug another card into a slot on the back of this printer and it would make your prints happen a lot faster and they would look higher quality. And boy howdy did it need it, because the LaserJet 2 is really old. I can't remember exactly. I think it's 87, I want to say, is when they first came out. Not the earliest laser printer by far, but definitely one that had a legacy and a long tail. I remember actually using one of these circa 1999, I believe. My dad brought one home from work because his Epson laser printer had died. And I didn't realize at the time it was as old as it is. But in retrospect, that explains why it was so goddamn slow. You'd send a print job to this thing, and it would take, no kidding, 5 minutes before it actually started spitting out a page. And I've since learned that's because the printer had a very, very slow connection to the PC and a very, very slow print engine and not very much memory. The printer was having to buffer tremendous amounts of data by the standards of 87. And so it just took eons to print anything. And apparently that RIP card would speed that up. So I was really excited to see that happen. And it took me, I think, about a month to find this printer. And when I got it, it was broken. How about that? So for the most part, it's in good condition, but it didn't have toner and it didn't have a paper tray. I actually had to go buy a paper tray on eBay for a LaserJet 3. Turns out the 3 and the 2 take the same tray. Who knew? I actually got those parts as original HP spares in their original packaging. I thought that was pretty funny. And got it all hooked up. And let me show you what it does. Wouldn't even be messing with any of this if it wasn't sitting on top of the thing that I actually wanted to show you. Didn't want to just, unceremoniously throw it aside, right? All right, so it went through the self-test process, no errors, said warming up. Took very little time to warm up, kind of surprising. A lot of laser printers from this era, in fact, I could swear the one I used to have would take, a good minute or two to warm up. This takes like 15 seconds. In this era, and I don't know if this is true for later laser jets, maybe they stopped doing this, maybe not, but the fuser, that's the metal drum that the paper rolls over that actually melts the toner onto the page, is heated by a halogen light bulb, like one of those long tube lights like you'd find in a work lamp back in like the 90s before they started getting the super high brightness LEDs to replace them. Those lights are so inefficient, I guess, that just a ton of the power going into the tungsten filament comes out as infrared, and that's enough to heat the fuser apparently very quickly. I would have thought that just an ordinary, nichrome heating element would be faster, but, proof's in the pudding. That's what Hewlett-Packard thought was the right call. Anyway, so we're running. We've got paper, we've got toner. Let's just take it offline and run a test. I always wonder what it's doing during the self-test, but if I recall correctly, this thing actually has a Motorola 68000 processor in it, and I'm guessing it's just doing like, a RAM check and talking to all its various peripherals and that sort of thing. So it's basically just posting, I suppose, like a Mac. All right, here we go. Printing test. Listen closely. Hear that? Not that, but the first one. That the high pitch, high frequency in the back there, that is a squirrel cage fan. It's just a cooling fan. And I know that's not the, whoa! Wait, what? Oh, it's working. It wasn't working before. Man, it's fused and everything. Holy crap, look at that. I swear I did not plan this. This was not working the last time I used it. It sure is making a hell of a racket. Look at what a bad time it was having at the beginning. You can actually see, I think, how long the roller is compared to the page, because this is divided into 3 segments. You see that? The roller has this much circumference. So it went around one time, and when it was done, the little brush in there swept all the spare toner off of it. Came around again, it was still a little dirty. And then this time around, the brush had finished cleaning off almost all of it. That's not half bad. Let's get in here. I have no idea where my focus was before. Maybe you couldn't see any of that, but look at that. That's actually terrific. Will it do it again? Test. Font printout. Oh, delightful. I was hoping it would do that, actually. I'll talk about fonts in a moment. Oh, this seems a lot more promising. See, previously what would happen is the sheet would get about an inch in, and then it would fail to pick it up and actually pull it through the rest of the mechanism. And it would just paper jam, but, oh yeah, look at that. Oh, we've got another sheet here? I'm sorry, it's been so long since I used one of these things. This is all new to me. Oh, terrific, and it did a landscape printout as well. Actually, very relevant to something I wanted to tell you, something I'm just learning myself, exploring this thing. But the important thing is, that works. And again, the roller was still a little dirty. Yeah, there's still a little bit of schmutz left over from the last time. And then when it came around again, that looks almost perfect. That's fantastic. Okay, so I was gonna make a call to action for anybody out there who knows how to fix these things to get in touch, but it looks like it healed itself. Although, truth be told, I took it all the way to bits. I tried to shoot this video earlier. It was just a miserable drudgery. I had read that a clicking noise in a fail to feed could be caused by a jammed solenoid. So I took the thing apart, pulled the cover off. I might still have the footage. The one neat thing I wanted to show you was that the entire power supply and solenoid assembly is actually mounted on 3 big plugs. So you take out a couple of screws and then you just yank it out of the machine. Yeah, I don't think there's any further screws. I think we just, hey, whoa. It's so cool. I've never seen anything like it. So that was fun, but I didn't make any progress in there. There was nothing wrong with the solenoids. And I poked around a little bit more and I just said, this is over my head. I don't even know where to begin. So I put it all back together, and all I was going to do is show you that it didn't work and then set it aside. But hey, here we are. Something I did while I was in there must have fixed it. I mean, I did sort of twiddle all the rollers and kind of move some things around. So maybe I just loosened something up that was stuck. I don't know. I'm thrilled about this, though. This is terrific. Well, anyway, let me tell you a little bit about how this works. I think, total speculation. I never had a reason to look it up, so I hadn't looked it up, but I think I get what's going on. Okay, so we've got 3 fonts here. We've got Courier, Courier Bold, and then just Line Printer. I knew there was a font called line printer, but I don't really know what it means. I'm guessing that this font is meant to reflect the head size of a dot matrix printer, but that seems kind of small for what that is. Maybe it's supposed to reflect a daisy wheel, something like that, but that's really, really tiny. 8.5 point, that seems really small for any line printer I've used. It feels like 10 point is about normal. And another weird thing I'm noticing, these are all the built-in fonts. These are in the printer itself. The left and right cartridge are missing. Okay, what's that about? Well, if we pull the paper tray out, you'll notice that under the tray we've got these two slots here, and in those we've got cartridges, and these are sort of like NES cartridges. They are literally ROM carts. I opened one up earlier, I'm gonna open one up again. This one is labeled Courier P&L, and this one is labeled Legal Courier. The Courier font, which you might be familiar with, it's in Windows, I believe. It's a monospace font, so it's good for typewriter style text. And we've got it in a medium weight, a bold weight, and then what appears to be an italic medium weight. Although it doesn't say that, I guess you're just supposed to look at it and see that it's italic. Then they appear to have a Prestige Elite Medium. That also seems to be a monospace font. Then we have line draw set, and I'm just going to go ahead and assume that those are box drawing characters, like you'd have in an IBM PC for drawing rudimentary graphics in text mode apps. I'm guessing that that's there so that if you're doing if you're hitting print screen on your PC, which if you don't know, back in the day when this thing was new, when you were in DOS, if you hit print screen, it printed your screen. It would actually just take the contents of the current screen and just spit it out to the parallel port. So if you didn't have the line drawing characters, you'd get gibberish, right? So all of that makes sense, except that this one here, Prestige Elite Medium, says it's in portrait and landscape. And if we take a look at this other cart, this one says Courier P&L, and they're all portrait and landscape. What's going on there? Okay, I don't know for sure, but I think I know. This would have been before the days of vector fonts. I don't think that came in on printers for quite some time to after this. But printers, I don't think the majority of them could handle actual vector fonts. So as you may have noticed, these cartridges contain fonts at fixed point sizes. This gives you Courier at 12 points. If you want something bigger or smaller, I guess you got to buy another cartridge. But the reason for that is that the printer can't make the font bigger or smaller on its own. So it also stands to reason that it can't rotate it on its own. If we think about this, again, don't take any of this as gospel. I don't know if this is true for sure, but I'm pretty sure that when the laser goes to lay down the image on the paper, it's working from a bitmap, right? I don't think it's like a vector monitor where the electron beam can cut a perfectly smooth line controlled by analog circuitry between any 2 points. I think these are actually built up out of pixels, each of these letters. So it stands to reason that if you rotate them, the pixels would have to be rotated in the image buffer. Well, if the printer can't do that because it's not fast enough and it's not smart enough or doesn't have enough RAM or whatever, then you'd have to pre-rotate them. So I think that's what's going on here. I think this is literally a copy of Courier that's upright and another copy that's just been rotated in the character cells so that when the printer prints it, it thinks it's printing upright, basically. This sheet is really a portrait orientation just using rotated letters. I think that's what's going on. There are some technical manuals on this stuff, and I'm gonna have to look it up now to see if that's really how it works, but it seems self-evident. That's gotta be how it works. Anyway, an interesting thing about these cartridges is that they're not screwed together, they're not glued together, not tattooed together either. They're just tabbed. So we just pop this guy here and that guy there. Fortunately, they aren't using the spindler plastics. There we go. I'm gonna be very careful not to touch inside here because for all I know, this is super static sensitive. But that's our font ROM cartridge. And this is intriguing because a lot of these chips have very similar labels on them and they don't look like any labels I've ever seen. They all say 1820-something. So we've got an 1820-0681 and then we have an 1820-2024 and then we have an 1820-1216. The hell are these things? I had to look this up, and what I found out is that apparently, at least in this era, HP, I don't know if they were making these chips. I don't think so. I think that's is that the National Semiconductor logo or something like that on there? It's somebody else's logo. It's not HP's. But apparently they had all of these silkscreened, I think, with proprietary internal part numbers just throw people off the track, I guess, when trying to clone them. So in fact, this 1216 here, I think that's a 74LS139, a standard off-the-shelf Jelly Bean IC that HP has just relabeled. People have got reference tables that tell you what each one of these are. They're all just ordinary stuff. Now, as for these two chips over here, you might have guessed, those are the actual ROMs. I looked these up. Well, you can just look right in the number. It says AM92256. It's a 256 kilobit ROM chip, right? That's how that's going to go. Specifically, it's a 32 by 8 ROM chip. Do the math. This has 64 kilobytes of storage on it, if I'm not mistaken. I'm really bad with these things. I tend to get that wrong, but 64K to store a total of 5 fonts, and I have not looked up what these cost, but come on. You know it's going to be several $100s, right? Had to have been. In any case, the big question is, why can't my printer see them? I wonder if they were seated all the way. An hour ago, I would have been happy just to have this thing spit out anything, you know, even one of these test sheets. But now that it has, the goalposts have moved. Why don't my fonts work? All right, here we go. Print fonts. Now that I've turned it off and turned it back on, do we think it's still going to work? Ooh, it sounds good. Yes, I hear those relays going. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? Ooh, our font cartridges are still missing. Maybe it's disabled in the firmware. There is a menu on this thing. We should take a look. Menu. All right. Copies 01. Here's a tangent for you. There was a whole series of LaserJets. I mean, hell, they're still making them, but there was a lineage of LaserJets that were all kind of visibly related to each other. The LaserJet 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were all sort of in the same kind of category of design and I think intended use case. And then they went off into, you know, 3 and 4 digit model numbers, and then they all just blend together. But the LaserJet 5, at least, was sold in a variant, or maybe they were all called this, called the Moppier. And this was an initiative that I think this was HP's thing. I think they invented this. Mopping was short for multiple original print. And the idea was that back in the late 80s, early 90s, when people started having LaserJets readily available, which made printing high quality documents a lot easier, people started to do more desktop publishing at the office, right? People started to do internal memos with big fonts and that sort of thing. And so what people would often do, I guess, is they would run off a print on the LaserJet, then they'd carry it over to the Xerox machine, put it on there, punch in 180 and hit go. So they have copies to distribute to the entire office. So HP, looking at this situation, I guess went, what the hell, a Xerox and a LaserJet are 95% the same thing. The only difference is whether the image comes from an actual document on a platen or from a laser. Well, by the LaserJet 5, they'd gotten their print speeds way, way, way up, and these things all had network print servers, and they were much nicer to use. And on top of that, the LaserJet 5 stands about this tall. I know, because I used to own one. I actually used to have one in my my apartment. I kept it next to the kitchen counter because it was the only place it would fit. And I had the 2 extension paper trays on it, so you could put like, I don't know, what was it, like 8,000 sheets of paper in it, something like that. Massive toner cartridges and whatnot. And so HP goes, wait, why go over to the Xerox machine? Why not just do it all here? So they came up with this idea of mopping, where you just put 180 copies right into the print dialog and hit go and just let the LaserJet do it. And of course, this was in the days of, they started to introduce automatic collation and that sort of thing. And so it was a big push to getting rid of the Xerox machine, which of course didn't quite play out like that. They just turned into multifunction devices, and I think Konica pushed HP right out of that market, but that's a whole different story and one I wasn't there for. So anyway, the fact that it says copies 1, and you set that all the way to 99, I believe that will just cause anything you send to the printer to come out multiple times. So I guess you could have done it even then. It's probably a lot more expensive though, I'd guess. All right, what do we got? We have a manual feed option. Oh, I believe that's for putting sheets of paper in here, so you can do like envelope printing, that sort of thing. Font source. Oh, here we go. We're set to I. That's probably internal. Oh, we have no other options. Seems like maybe it's not detecting the font cartridges. Font number. Okay, so this is probably selecting what the default font will be if there's no other instructions. Now, intriguingly, this goes up well above the number of internal fonts that this says that we have. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Because it has portrait and landscape fonts built in, there actually are 22 fonts. Form width, don't know anything about that. Oh, and that's the entire menu, isn't it? So for some reason, yeah, it's just not picking up my font cartridges. Well, at this point, this is something I can actually probably troubleshoot using, the manual, the service manual, something like that. So, hot diggity, terrific. I didn't expect to get any of that out of this thing. All the same, though, that's about all we can do for the moment because I don't have the image processor hooked up or a machine plugged into or anything like that. So I'm still going to set this aside, and we're going to take a look at something else, which, well, at this point, might not even be as successful as this thing was. Oh boy, that's like 40 pounds. I'd like to bring your attention to him. You may have seen another video on my side channel about this guy here. This is the Play Inc. Globecaster. No, I'm sorry. Play Inc. Trinity, which went on to get acquired and become the World Streams Globecaster, I believe. And in that video, I complained about how it didn't work. I didn't have a chance in that video to show you how it actually came to me. It came to me in a flight case, partly disassembled. This thing originally had a really cool front panel on it. Maybe I'll actually show you a picture of that. Right there? Yeah? Yeah? Looks amazing, right? This one, unfortunately, when they chopped it to make it transportable, they took off the top cover and just got rid of it forever. And they took off the front panel and got rid of it together. It takes so much of the fun out of it. But the machine is still here, and I think that it probably is capable of working with a little bit of TLC. Let me turn this big bastard around and get it up here. All right, crash course. This thing is a production video mixer. Now, I made a video about those a while back. If you haven't watched that and you won't know what any of this is for, you should go watch that because it'll take way too long to explain. So this thing, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was sold for several different purposes, but it was definitely capable of doing live production, video mixing and effects. And it was made by a lot of the same people who worked on the new tech video toaster, the Amiga video toaster. So it's sort of doing the same thing that was, but much bigger and with a very different concept underpinning it. The Amiga was using a single card with a bunch of fixed function circuitry on it. This uses a ton of cards with fixed function circuitry, except those cards are interchangeable and they don't plug into a PC. This thing does not, it's not a little guy. It doesn't have an x86 CPU in there or anything like that, or an Amiga 68,000 CPU for that matter. This is just completely proprietary top to bottom. So all of these cards build up a video switcher that notionally provides all the capabilities your particular production needs. If you want to have more of a certain kind of effect, you would add more cards. If you want to have more inputs or outputs, you add input and output cards, that sort of thing. I suspect that in practice, pretty much all of them had the same loadout, but whatever. So we've got a central controller card over here. This thing connects to a PC because, like I said, this thing has no intelligence of its own. You have to control it using a separate computer. We've got a network card. That's actually for network video transmission, if I remember correctly. This actually had a way of piping full resolution standard def video over the network, much like the what would later be called NDI, the New Tech Display Interface, I think it is, which let you send high resolution, high frame rate, high quality video over any old network. Gets used heavily these days in all sorts of things. Don't know if it actually has any roots in this technology, but I wouldn't be surprised. Then we have a couple of output cards. This is your main output, this is your preview output. The difference between those being that the main output is going to feed out to your production mixer or your VTR that you're recording on or whatever. The preview output is just going to plug into a monitor on your desk that shows you what image you're about to cut to, shows you an effect before you apply it, that sort of thing. And it looks like they also decided to use the preview card to house the interfaces for the GPI and the Tally. GPI does lots of things. Tally is used to tell camera operators when their camera just went live. And I guess they figured, well, we have to put it on a card. Everybody has to have a preview card. Let's just put it on there because they already filled up the program card. Then we've got a serial port card. It's just 4 RS-232 or probably RS-422 interfaces as well. And I haven't even read the manual, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that's probably for controlling VCRs. because if you're in a post-production situation, if you're using this to add effects to pre-recorded video, then you're going to have 2 to 4 videotape recorders that have to be carefully controlled, told to start and stop playing and start and stop recording at exactly the right moment, and you orchestrate that through your effects processor. So that's probably what those are for. Then we've got 4 input cards. These will do S-video and composite. I showed this thing to a few people and they all reacted with shock that it can't do component and it can't do SDI. I have to agree, that's pretty wild. There's an awful lot of sort of mid-level pro video gear that doesn't have anything more advanced than S-video on it. It's a thing. And then you've got your audio routing matrix down here, because unlike some production mixers, which can only handle video, this one also handles audio because it's meant to be sort of a complete production in a box kind of thing. And let's see, we've got 8 channels of input. Then we've got left and right sends, left and right returns, so you can pass this through like effects and that sort of thing. Then we've got our program outputs. That's your final audio signal. It's going to get recorded to your VTR or whatever. And then you've got your monitor outputs to send to your headphones and whatnot. And yeah, pretty impressive looking device, pretty intimidating. Not really all that shocking though. You know, once you get past like, whoa, that's a lot of plugs. Every single one of these has a pretty well-defined purpose, and if you know anything about video mixing, which, well, if you watched that video I was talking about, you do now, then all this makes a whole lot of sense. What makes less sense is that they built it at all. From everything I've read contemporaneously and in the years to follow, this thing was never good. Because everything is hardware defined, you're limited to the capabilities that it comes with, and apparently Play Inc. did not do a very good job of either making those abilities as good as they could be from the factory, or following up with any sort of improvements. And because it's all hardware-based, those improvements would have required replacing expensive components. Like every single thing in here is covered in custom chips and FPGAs and DSPs, and even right there I can see there's a chip with the LSI logo on it. That's the mark of the beast. That thing goes bad. Too bad. There's nothing else like it in the world. And of course, when I got this thing, something had gone bad. These things are turbo rare at this point. I've only ever seen one for sale. It's been on eBay for ages. I don't think the seller knows if it works. I have a very strong feeling it probably doesn't. So this is one that a friend hooked me up with, and he didn't know if it worked either, I don't think. It did come with the controlling computer that actually had the interface cards and the software and whatnot. That computer ended up having a bunch of viruses on it, and also I plugged into this thing and nothing doing. No bueno, wouldn't play ball. So I got in here and I started pulling cards, and I found that if I pulled enough of them, it would start responding. It would actually start talking to the software. And I put them back in and got to a point where everything was working. I guess they just really needed a reseat for the most part. But I was getting a RAM failure on one of the most essential cards, the switcher card, which is this guy right here. Most likely the way this thing works is that each of these cards here, the input cards, takes a composite or an S-video signal. It converts it into most likely the D1 format. That was a SMPTE standardized digital format, a single bit stream representing an NTSC, I think only NTSC, maybe PAL too, video signal. So essentially it's raw for TV signals, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and say most likely that that's what this uses internally. So probably what happens is the output cards each accept one D1 signal and then convert it into several types of analog format. The input cards each take analog video and convert it into D1 streams. And then there's a great big motherboard in here that just has dozens of what look like PCI slots on them. I'd love to show you, but there's just no way to get in here. It's so dingy and dark and deep down in there. But I'm guessing that although they look like PCI, most likely what's going on is that they're using them like sort of like TDM telephony channels. Each group of pins on these connectors is probably a single D1 video channel, and any card can subscribe to any channel, and then this guy is responsible for picking out some of those signals and routing them to different cards, telling one card, hey, look at this one, another card, hey, look at that one. The end result, though, is, holy crap, is that a lot of custom circuitry. We've got several Play Inc. branded chips. So those are ASICs, application-specific ICs, totally custom silicon. We've got a Motorola 68030 over here, beast of a chip still, even at the time. Xilinx, some sort of FPGA in the middle. Whole bunch more Xilinx in the middle there. So this is an incredibly complex card, and I think it's broken because this is the one that's failing the RAM test. You'll see it's got a 72-pin SIM up here, and it's failing when it tests that stick, but here's the rub. I swapped it. I had a whole bag of sticks, and I went through all of them, and every single one gave the same error. Now, that tells me that it's not actually failing when it tests the RAM. It's failing somewhere else on the board. We've got bad trace, bad solder joint. We got a dead transistor in a chip. Who knows? Anything could be going on. Maybe the 6830 needs to be reseated. I don't know, but it's over my head. It's too much for me to diagnose. And I was actually about to immediately start trying to find a new person to offload this onto because I just don't have time for this sort of thing in my life. But then I found out that somebody on eBay had a replacement card. So what I want to do is I'm going to plug this thing back in. We're going to hook it up to the PC here. We're going to run the test, make sure it fails the same way it always does. It's a good way to start an experiment, right? Make sure that your the thing that was broken is still broken the same way and didn't get better in the meantime. And then if it still fails, then we'll swap it out for the other card. We'll see if it works. And if it does, if the thing suddenly springs to life, we'll plug in some cameras and we'll do a little bit of video switching. See what happens. Whoa! Immediately trips over a C-stand and breaks his neck. Yeah, baby, that's Hollywood. Oh, I almost forgot I brought this in here. Everything that this behemoth can do, and a lot more, has been replaced by this little guy. It is a little guy too. It meets my standards. This is a mini ITX board with an NVIDIA graphics card and just a hint of custom circuitry for doing video input and output. And this is a 4-input, 2-output HD live vision mixer and effects unit. That's the NewTek TriCaster. What the hell are you? What's your model number? TriCaster Mini HD4. There we go. This thing is about 1,000 times more sophisticated than the Globecaster here, and a much better idea because everything it does is done in software. And my understanding is that the real tragedy of Play Inc. is, well, other than the fact that the CEO died of a heart attack not long after they put this thing out. Everyone was disappointed with this thing because since it wasn't software-based, in an era when software-based switching was absolutely becoming possible and practical and affordable, you were stuck with whatever it came with. Whereas, I think maybe 2 years after this came out, NewTek put out the first version of what would become the TriCaster series. It did everything this could do and 10 times more, all in software, on a Pentium 2. It's no big deal. All right, how are we gonna do this? This is our PC. Let's get this guy hooked up. I just started using this space, so I haven't quite figured out how it's all gonna work. I think that I wanna keep using this as a work surface rather than trying to work in the middle of the room. I think having it over against the wall is a good idea. I can set up a monitor and lighting and stuff like that, but I think I'm gonna have to get a sheet of plywood to go in here to smooth things out because, well, you saw how much that sucked. Now, this thing hooks up to the PC with what Play Inc. called VideoNet, which is a pair of coax cables with BNCs on them. I've got those around here somewhere. I did find out that if you use the wrong impedance cable, if you use RG58 when it wants RG59, which I think is what this is, then it actually won't work. It'll fail to talk to the computer. Yeah, these are the wrong cables. Let me find the right cables. Oh shit, where are my cables? Surely I must own cables. Everything I'm finding is RG58. I need RG59. Television cable, baby, come on. This is all 58. Okay, finally, I found it. The only two RG59 cables in my entire studio, apparently. I gotta figure out what's going on here. I think this is the stuff you're supposed to be using for video applications, which means that for all these years I've been using RG59. I'm sure that hasn't caused any problems. One of these is RX, one of these is TX. I don't know which. It's really hard to read the labels. We'll just swap them if it doesn't work. It's a good plan, right? All right, keyboard and mouse. Do I own a keyboard or a mouse? Let's see. Surely somewhere in this crazy little thing we call life is a keyboard and a mouse. Okay, here's two Mac-only Avid editing keyboards and one USB third-party Avid editing keyboard with the cable cut off. I'm killing it over here. The only keyboard and the only mouse that I was able to find. Had to go all the way over to the actual studio to find them. I'm definitely doing something right over here. That should just about do it. Oh, by the way, if you happen to watch my ABIT BP6 video, you may recall I was talking about the Nlight case with the secret little release on the bottom. Turns out I had a 7237 kicking around. I just already built a machine in it, didn't realize. How ironic. So this thing's running Windows 2000 because it's actually built to be my Video Toaster NT demo platform, and that was definitely the right OS for that. As for the Globecaster here, 2000 XP, either one would probably be fair. The thing was definitely in use into 2001. Oh, I should probably actually turn on the Trinity here. All right, let's run the card diagnostic tool here. And if it doesn't connect, that's probably because I've got the cables backwards. Yeah, that's probably the case. I'll be right back. All right, let's try this again. Detecting, detecting, detecting. Did it get worse? Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, no, you know what it is? I plugged all the cards back in before I put this thing away the other day, and I'm pretty sure that the two nonlinear editor cards are actually keeping it from booting. So this big bastard here and this big bastard there, I think are both part of the nonlinear editor. At least one is. And I'm just going to unplug that and set it sideways in there, and we'll see if that's enough to make it go. Detecting. No, I think the other card, the one that had the SCSI cables coming out of it, I think that's at fault because it looks pretty damn complicated, that thing. Probably more sophisticated than the whole rest of the machine. So I think that thing's probably failing to boot. Most likely, as soon as I get this guy out of there, there we go, it's going to fire right up. You know, I notice there's actually a stick of memory back there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's another 72-pin SIM. That may also be bad. And I also see that this card back here has memory on it. So all that memory could be bad or just need reseated. Once again, from the top. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. So this program is actually a card-specific memory diagnostic app. So this is the base card, the actual like CPU that's in there that coordinates everything. They call it the coordinator. It's running kernel version 1.2.183. Looks like it was built in 2003, so this thing was being used pretty late. And that card apparently only has 1 meg of memory on it. Delightful. Then we've got our 5 composite input cards. None of these have RAM of their own. Neither do the output encoders, the preview or the main output encoder. The Ethernet encoder, likewise. The router card. The fact these all show up is terrific, but none of these actually have memory on them till we get to the switcher. Okay. It thinks it has 16 megs. That's interesting because I thought it had 8 when I first looked at it. And querying fails at OXE85002. This is what it was doing before. So nothing's changed. Terrific. So let me just go get the replacement card and we'll see if dropping that in there fixes it. Okay, so here's a fun fact. I just got the replacement card out of the shipping box. It's in normal plastic, not Velostat. This card could very well have been good when they shipped it, but it might not be good now. Oh, boy. You poor thing. Well, it's here. Let's let it shoot its shot. Alley-oop. Oop-be-ow. Sorry, that one sort of took me by surprise. Didn't know I was going to say it till I said it. Still not sure if I should have. We do have a couple diagnostic lights on here. This guy and these two. Let's see if they do anything when it comes on. Well, the red one probably just means it's getting 5 volts. So who knows what that counts for. The other two, nothing doing. Hoping for the best here. All right, well, whatever. Here we go. Boy, my hopes are not high over here. Everything else still shows up, so things not totally fried. Querying, failure OXE802. And what that means, friends, etc., is that it was never the switcher card. I spent like 50 bucks on that card. I lowballed the hell out of them. So it's not really the end of the world, but now I have 2 switcher cards and no go. Oh, this sucks. Well, I guess that means we're done because I have no idea what else to do. I've gone at the slots with not deoxit, just isopropyl, you know, and like some paper. You know, I just soaked some paper and scrubbed the contacts. Nothing came off. Honestly, the thing ain't that dusty, etc., etc. So I have no idea what to do with this damn thing. If you have any idea what to do with this damn thing, let me know. In summary, though, well, I don't know if that was fun to watch, but it was fun and relaxing to make, which is a nice change of pace from what usually happens when I try to shoot sort of ad hoc videos here at the studio or at home where I just don't have the room to do stuff and to move the camera. Here, the fact that I can just put the camera wherever I need to put it, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I've never had luxuries like this. My cup is run a thing over so hard, that joke petered out. I had no idea where to go with it. Who do you call when a cup runneth over too much? Plumbers? If you think if the cup is overhead and it's running down into your apartment and you think that it's like from a broken pipe, but the cup would usually have wine in it in this context, I think. So unless you maybe you think it's blood pouring out of the, oh, oof. All right, that got kind of dark. Well, it's probably time to end the video then. Thank you all for watching. I have no idea, again, what I'm going to do with this. Publish it on my main channel, my side channel, whatever. I'll show it to patrons first. I'll tell you that much. They can tell me what the hell to do with the damn thing. I guess whether this seems like a good idea does to me. I had a damn good time. Hopefully you did too. Either way, though, I'm going to go ahead and shut everything off and go home because I'm beat. It's been a long one.